What's really going on with the Iowa sports betting scandal that's going on? We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to check in on a couple of Big Ten training camps. Locked On Big Ten starts now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Greg Schiano. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate it. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So what's really going on with Iowa and sports gambling out there? It's a lot of news. We're going to look at it a little closer. Plus, we'll check in on some training camps, see if Rutgers is ready to go, and maybe some bad news for Ohio State. Hang tight for that. Plus, we'll have our Tuesday tweets, which is hilarious at the end of the show. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right. Legalized sports gambling. It's spreading across the country every day. Another state is making it legal. A lot of people like it. We've seen the NFL and have its players get into some trouble. Various suspensions for betting on the sport. So far, it's just been a couple of guys on a sports betting app and betting on games or doing so at the team facility, and that's a no-no. Many have been suspended. We've yet to see a player bet against his team or on a game in which he has played. Yet. Now, on to college football. There have been some stories about players at Iowa and Iowa State betting on games. In fact, the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigations is looking into this. And Kirk Ferentz, of course, the head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes, was asked about this during the Big Ten Media Days a few weeks ago. We highlighted it here on this very podcast. And he said it was something they had never really paid much attention to. And I mean, I kind of believe him on that, but it's something you should be paying attention to. Says he just doesn't really know much about sports gambling. He claimed that his son was the one who recently told him that sports betting was so common that even ESPN Game Day features sports betting lines on college football on Saturday morning. I mean, they've been doing it for years. I was shocked that he was shocked to learn about that, as a matter of fact, because he did. He claimed he was shocked. He didn't know. Well, anyway, ESPN's been doing this for years, and I didn't think it was a great look for Ferentz at the time. The plausible deniability only goes so far in this day and age of instant information. But I like Kirk Ferentz. I always have, and I like the Iowa football program. But there might be a problem brewing here that they need to take care of. In fact, just Friday, Ferentz was talking about it. He was being asked about it in his press conference, and he said if his players are betting on Iowa games, then that's a deal breaker. You know, they're gone. They're out of here. He said as we move forward, this whole thing has just been a real learning experience, an eye-opener, if you will. Well, let's go back in time just a little bit. In May, Iowa announced that 26 athletes across 5 sports were being investigated for sports betting, which is obviously against NCAA rules. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, because it's also illegal to buy already committed recruits cheeseburgers in Ann Arbor. Who knew? So I digress for just a moment. Several weeks ago, we heard that Iowa State, now not Iowa, but Iowa State quarterback Hunter Deckers allegedly bet on a Cyclones game. He was a member of the team at the time. He was there at a game, but he didn't play in the particular game that was wagered on. And also at the time, Iowa walk-on backup kicker Aaron Blum had been charged as well. Now, Blum is accused of making 170 wagers on a mobile app from January 2021 to February 2022, totaling $4,400. And he also did it while he was underage. Turns out the legal betting age in Iowa is 21. Blum allegedly placed a bet on a point total of a 2021 Iowa State football game in which he did not play. But what if he did? Can you imagine? What if there were injuries and he got called in and had to play the game? Can you imagine a kicker coming into a game, affecting the game, knowing that he had bet on a point spread or point total? When you bet the under, he's going to miss the kick, right? Can you imagine if a quarterback and how easy it would be for them to manipulate the outcome of a game if they had bet on a game? This is serious stuff. It's growing and it's spreading, and it needs to be paid attention to. We learned last week, now as this story developed, that 3 members of the Hawkeyes, the Iowa Hawkeyes football team, have been charged in the state's investigation into this matter. One of them was wide receiver Jack Johnson. Another one, a couple more, were former players of the Hawkeyes. Arlen Bruce IV, he has since transferred to Oklahoma State, and Reggie Bracey, who is transferred to Troy. So they're gone, but their charges include tampering with records, which is a misdemeanor. They hid their identity in electronic sports wagering, which means they tried to make it look like somebody else was making the bets for them on a phone app. Defensive lineman Noah Shannon said back in July that he also was part of the investigation by the state. Now, Kirk Ferentz said Shannon's situation, and he's the most prominent player to have allegedly be involved here. He says it's not a big deal and won't impact the team with its preparation for the upcoming season because this player is injured. I don't like that response, really. It's not a really good answer. Says everyone else who are involved in the investigation, they're practicing as if they're ready to go and healthy, and they're going to be playing until something else breaks. Here are the NCAA rules on gambling, okay? Student athletes who wager on their sport or other sports at their school can suffer permanent loss of eligibility. Forever. Done. You're gone. You're kicked out. Student athletes who bet on their sport but not on their school could lose up to 50% of their season, half season suspension. Other violations could see penalties based on cumulative dollar totals from the wagers. We just gave you an example of what one player, the kicker, how much he was betting on this. The Iowa Department of Public Safety says their investigation is ongoing and may result in the filing of additional charges. So we'll have to wait and see. They say no further information can be released at this time. So here we are. We know it's out there. We know it's happening. And there could be more coming in the future. Every day, another state is making sports betting legal. And there are even stadiums out there. We can go to the stadium of a game and make your bet there. So, look, some people are really excited about this. And other people better be very, very careful about it and make sure the integrity of the sport of which people are betting on is not hindered. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Hit me up on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. Comments down below. If you're watching on YouTube, would be welcome. And where you fall on this and where you think it's going. So we'll take all your comments there. Also, want to take a look at some training camps around the Big Ten. We're going to look at Rutgers for one, and they're going to be on the national stage against Northwestern on the only game in town. It's Sunday at noon on September 3rd. That's right, Sunday game. Right when the NFL is taking a break between preseason and regular season. Greg Schiano's made some important changes. We'll find out if they've been ready. Also, I have some Ohio State Buckeye news. You Buckeye fans, don't go anywhere. You are going to want to hear this. It's all coming up on Locked On Big Ten. Do you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? And look, it's normal. But it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Neutrophone. That's right. Neutrophone is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Go to Nutrafol.com/men and take their hair health wellness quiz and identify causes of your thinning hair. And Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting the root causes such as for thinning, such as stress and hormones and environment, nutrition, lifestyle, metabolism. It's all a factor. So through whole body health is how to attack all this. And it works in a clinical study. 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Neutrophone men's hair growth supplements. Pretty good. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Neutrophone is offering our listeners here on Lockdown Big Ten $10 off of your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. That's spelled Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. All right. And again, one more time, that's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. All right. So a couple of notes from some training camps going on around the Big Ten. First of all, let's start with the Ohio State Buckeyes. News today that tight end Bennett Christian will not play for the Buckeyes this season. He was a former 4-star recruit. He tested positive for a banned substance back in January. The way it's played out, he is not going to play for the Buckeyes this year. Ryan Day says, look, he's a great kid, great family. He did something wrong. He's been very transparent. He wants to let others know about his mistake. And so that's where it's at with him. Ryan Day also added he is not ready to name a starting quarterback yet because that question is coming every day. And Kyle McCord and Devin Brown are in a battle. That is apparently still the case. Here's what I told you before. I'll tell you again what I think is going to happen. They open up against the Hoosiers and Bloomington against Indiana on September 2nd. I think Kyle McCord will start the game, probably play up to 3 quarters, and then Devin Brown will come in the 4th quarter. That's what I think. That's what Coach Greg Schiano says. I don't know if Coach Ryan Day is going to say the same thing, but that's what I'm calling it right now. All right. Also on to Greg Schiano and Rutgers. They've got to improve on last year. They started out 4-3, but they only won 4 games all year. Won their first, 4 games out of the first 7, and then they dropped their last 5. And they open up the season against Northwestern on Sunday, September 3rd, national TV. And frankly, it's a game they got to win if they want to move forward. I mean, you got to beat Northwestern. Teams of kind of equal talent basis, if you will, and they got to get that game right out of the box. Also, Greg Schiano, I watched him on a couple of interviews and some things I have gathered from that. Look, the offense is continuing to grow. They've added offensive coordinator Kirk Ferentz. He came in from Minnesota, and this is his second go. He was with Schiano the first time when he was with Rutgers many, many years ago. And apparently it was not easy to get him to come back and contractually and the whole deal, but they were able to do it. Schiano was very appreciative of the administration to help him go ahead and get Ferentz now to lead the offense. He likes quarterback Gavin Wimsatt, who, by the way, he named as the starter early in camp, unlike last year where he didn't name his starting quarterback until right before the first game. Now, much different vibe at camp this year. Everybody knows who the leader is. Everybody knows who the quarterback is. And they can proceed through camp knowing that and acting like that. As far as Wimsatt goes, he's getting better. He's more accurate. And he said something neat about him. He says, look, he's learning how to be a quarterback, not a thrower, not a runner, but a quarterback, someone that can manage this offense and keep it moving. On his defense, he likes all 3 levels of it. In fact, the defense is the strength of this football team. They did pretty well last year. And he also talked about the portal. He still wants to focus on high school recruits. He feels like he really can own the New York, New Jersey area over there in Rutgers and just fill gaps and needs through the portal. And we've talked about that before on this podcast. We've talked about Rutgers. He seems to be the slowest to get on board with the transfer portal. So some schools are just turning over their roster. Others just hit and miss areas that need some help. He seems to be the latter. And that's how he's going to proceed so far. And he feels like it's working for him right now. He also said something else about the depth on the Rutgers football team, that it's much better and the talent level is higher there. And he said that he made this comparison about 2 or maybe even 3 times. He goes, look, would I trade my guy for this guy on another team? What he meant, like, if you took a guy on Rutgers at a particular position and you looked at a guy in the same position on another team that they're playing, would he ever want to swap guys to get better? And he says that is less and less the case, that he is happy with his guys. The other team doesn't have a better person, a better athlete at the same position on the other team. So he's very confident in their talent level at Rutgers. He was asked about expansion with the league. Look, we talk about how much this affects all these West Coast teams that are expanding and coming into the Big Ten. It also affects the West Coast teams the most as well, or the East Coast teams like Rutgers and Maryland. They got to travel cross country too. He said, you know what? I don't even think about it. I really don't. He says it would affect us, but he says if it's good for the Big Ten, it's good for Rutgers, period. He says the Big Ten is a great conference and is getting better. He says that is going to be better for Rutgers in the long run. I saw Gavin Wimsatt, the quarterback, speak a little bit, and he played in 8 games last year. Not overwhelming numbers, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It's his 3rd year on campus. He graduated high school early to spend an extra semester at Rutgers and get in there early for his first spring. And now it's been, 3 camps he's been with them now. He's comfortable. He says he's becoming a much more vocal leader, which wasn't natural to him early on. And he's just trying to get consistent and even out the highs and lows a little bit. Kirk Ferentz is the offensive coordinator that takes over that we talked about, that Greg Schiano had to pull some strings to get him to come and return back to Rutgers. He takes over an offense that only scored 13 points a game last year and had the fewest passing yards in Power 5 schools. So they really need to improve on that. Sriracha coming in from Minnesota Golden Gophers program. And he talked about Wimsatt too, and he said the same thing. He's got to even out, man. He can have the highs, but let's not have as many lows at quarterback. And he also said something that caught my attention. When he came in, you would think maybe he would watch a lot of film and maybe get an idea of who's who and who can do what. He said he's not looked at one single film of a single game of a single player from before he got there. He wanted a clean slate. He wanted the players to have a clean slate with him and vice versa. So I thought that was interesting. And they talked about the 3 things that are important to him: being consistent, execution, and violence. Violence, yeah. You hear that a lot from defensive coaches and defensive players, not offensive guys. So he wants to be violent up there too. He likes the coaches at Rutgers. He likes the culture. He says a lot of trust here and a great work ethic, and he's very, very happy to be there. Also, linebacker Deion Jennings, I saw him speak. 91 tackles last year, 8.5 tackles for loss. He's coming back. He's working on having an eye on the play, kind of figuring out things that happened before they happen, being patient, trusting his keys, working a lot on film study and wide receiver splits and learning tendencies of other players. And that's what he spent a lot of his time on. And his defensive coordinator, Joe Harasimiak, his 2nd year there, also coming from Minnesota a couple of years ago. He's a New Jersey native, though, but coming from the Golden Gopher program. And he does have some head coaching experience. He spent 3 years at Maine, and he keeps talking about sustainability. Look, the defense was the strength of this Rutgers football team last year. And the thing with them is both with the season and in games, they started out well and they faded late. Started out the first half of the season pretty well, kind of petered out at the end. We're playing games great in the first half, peter out in the second half. Now, in my opinion, one of the reasons was the offense was really not that good, and the defense had to keep going out there on the field. The offense was not sustaining drives, chewing up clock, and resting the defense. So defense played a lot of snaps last year. They wore out. They got tired. They got beat down a little bit. They're trying to fix that. If the offense could be any better, that would help out a lot. But also he likes their defensive line and their depth, particularly in the middle. So he can rotate a lot of guys and keep them fresh right there. And just, make the available play. Don't be Superman. Don't be a hero. Make the play that you're assigned to make. Don't let the water leak. He likes to say that a lot. Stay fresh. Don't be the hero. And then he went on to say that, look, this is the Big Ten, not the Little 10. So he's got to be strong. And he used the word violence too. Violence is non-negotiable for the Rutgers defense. A lot of coaches I've been hearing in training camp doing interviews using the word violence. That's what they're getting off to the kids. He's got to be explosive and powerful. and violent. So that's the latest on the Rutgers football camp. We're going to take a little bit more of a look at the Penn State Nittany Lions in tomorrow's podcast. I want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, by the way. And again, you everydayers, we appreciate you so much. But we'll take a look at Penn State tomorrow. And I want all of you to be on the lookout for our Locked On Big Ten roundtable with other Locked On hosts that join me. I think we had got like 9 of us together. And that is going to be released pretty soon. I'll give you the date on that. I'm pretty excited about that coming out. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe. Again, we're getting closer to 3,000, right? I never thought we'd do that when we took over in June, but 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. The rest of you, all of you, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. In fact, if you could do me a favor, all of you, even if you've already subscribed, share this podcast with somebody you think would like it. Big Ten graduate, alum, friend, family, somebody you shoot the breeze with and talk Big Ten with. Go ahead and share us with them if you wouldn't mind. I mean, if all of our 2,500, 2,600 subscribers did that, man, we could double in no time. And it'd be because of you. Remember, I said at the beginning, this is our club. This is our Big Ten club here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, coming up, our weekly feature, our Tuesday tweets you don't want to miss. That's always fun and interesting right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, Tuesday tweets. Let's put it on the board. If you're just listening to the audio podcast, we always put some graphics up here. I'll explain them in as best detail as I can so you don't feel left out. But we put them on video here on YouTube. We grab a couple of tweets that I notice on my Twitter page. By the way, that's at Talk Big Ten. Hit me up. I'm going to put these on the board and go through them in order. And this first one is from at Jacob Berger 2022, and it was about Paul Chryst at Wisconsin. And I'm glad he said this. Everybody's all excited about Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, and they should be. Great football coach. I think he's going to do great things there. But, when Paul Chryst was let go, a lot of people were surprised. They're like, what? I like that guy. He did okay. He did more than okay. And according to this tweet, kind of laid out the facts. During his tenure at Wisconsin, 3 Big Ten West Division championships in 2016, 17, and 19. 2-time Big Ten Coach of the Year, 2016 to 2017. Went 6-1 in bowl games. How many coaches can say that? And he finished in the top 10 twice, top 25 4 times, and 67 to 26 overall. He was a very good football coach. He'll get another job, but he probably didn't feel like he should have been fired. But he is now an offensive analyst at Texas, in case you were wondering. Moving on, at Wolverine Chronicle. This is a great point by Tom Mars, Jim Harbaugh's attorney. Remember, Jim Harbaugh was going to be suspended for 4 games this year, and now he's not. The NCAA case against him fell apart, and now nothing will happen this season, maybe next season. And Tom Mars, the attorney, said, quote, pursuant to the NCAA's internal operating procedures and under threat of penalties, Michigan, the involved coaches, and their lawyers are prohibited from uttering a word about this ongoing case. Yet, the NCAA can issue a public statement putting its spin on the case, question mark, unquote. He's right. They issued a statement this weekend after the announcement came out that Jim Harbaugh would not be suspended. They went on to remind everybody that Harbaugh was being suspended for recruiting violations and it was not about buying kids cheeseburgers. Well, it was, but it wasn't. Anyway, yeah, they get to make a statement, but Michigan can't. Good point by Tom Mars. Thank you for that, at Wolverine Chronicle. Here is a tweet from at Mark of the King 25, and it is a picture of, and for those that can see it, anybody recognize it? That is Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette at Purdue University. Lots of renovations going on, new scoreboard and all that, but this is a picture of a tractor digging up the middle of the field. No grass, all dirt, laying in a system, a drainage system, sprinklers, the whole deal. They can't play football on it today. It's all dirt, but it will look nice when it is all done. But it's a nice peek behind the scenes, if you will. Here is from at the Mop Lady. We have used this tweet before, or this person before, their tweets. They're always pretty good. And it's a 4-box picture of a man cave basement of an Indiana fan at Fort Wayne, Indiana. The house is for sale. Got small basketball court on one wall with the Hoosier logo. It's got the championship banners hanging, red chairs, lazy boys, a bar, everything you can want to watch an Indiana basketball or football game there for sure. Thank you very much for that. And we have one more from the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Should Ohio State consider hiring Jim Tressel as their new athletic director? And a picture of Jim Tressel in the sweater vest being hiked up on shoulders and victory. Of course, he won a national championship at Ohio State in 2002. Gene Smith announced this week that he is retiring next summer. I think Jim Tressel would be an interesting decision for Ohio State. I think he is kind of a management type and could do well. He has been a consultant for the Colts ever since he was let go at Ohio State back in 2010, 2011. And he's an 8-time coach of the year, and he's in the College Football Hall of Fame and a national championship winner. And, you know, some of the things that he was involved in, tattoo gate and all that with his players, that would be nothing today with NIL going on. So maybe bring it back. However, just today before the taping of our podcast, I read an article that Pat Chun may be the leading person there. That is the athletic director at Washington State. He may be the leader. He used to work with Gene Smith back in the day. He was very critical, Pat Chun was, of the Pac-12 and how they imploded, and their management was brutal. But anyway, with his ties to Gene Smith, maybe he will come and work at Ohio State. It turns out he might be the number one candidate at Southern Cal also, who's coming to the Big Ten, because the previously thought to be lead candidate, Jeremiah Donati, the athletic director at TCU and all the success they have had lately, he was rumored to be the leading candidate for the USC athletic director job, but he pulled out and says he's not interested in it. So now both USC coming to the Big Ten and Ohio State already in the Big Ten, both may have Pat Chun circled as their number one candidate to be the next athletic director. Somebody may have to move fast if they want him. USC actually has an opening right now. Of course, Gene Smith will not step down until next summer. So that is all the latest going on. Thank you for the tweets, by the way. Tuesday tweets. Always love doing those. Those are always a lot of fun. Thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Again, you everydayers, our next show have the latest on Big Ten camps. We'll focus on the Penn State Nittany Lions a little bit as well. And again, another reminder, be on the lookout for Locked On Big Ten, the Roundtable podcast. And that's with other Locked On podcast hosts as well, all together in one place, previewing the upcoming season. In the meantime, we'd love to hear from you at Twitter, at Talk Big Ten, or hear comments on YouTube right here. Again, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for those who have done so. And follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Now, I want to invite you to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for the latest on everything going on in sports. I want you to have a great day. Thank you for our time together. Can't wait till we get together again. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.